Lila was born without the ability to see, but she had a world full of sound and rhythm. Even as a small child, she loved the feel of the piano keys beneath her fingers. While other children ran and played outside, Lila would sit for hours in front of the piano at home, exploring the different notes and listening to the sounds she could create. Her mother noticed her talent early on and encouraged her, buying her music books with large, tactile notes and hiring teachers who knew how to teach a blind student. Music became more than just a hobby for Lila. It was her way to experience the world and to express feelings she could not put into words. As she grew older, her passion for the piano only became stronger. Every day after school, she would rush home, her backpack bouncing against her shoulders, and sit at the piano until her fingers hurt. She learned to play by ear, remembering every note, every chord, and every melody she heard. She could listen to a piece of music just once and play it back perfectly. Her teachers were amazed by her memory and her sensitivity to music. She didn't just play the notes. She understood them, feeling every emotion the composer had intended to share. Lila's school recognized her talent and offered her a chance to perform at the annual music showcase. The thought of standing in front of an audience made her nervous, but it also filled her with excitement. She had never performed outside her home or small classrooms, and this was her opportunity to show the world what she could do. She practiced tirelessly, her fingers moving like dancers on the keys, rehearsing each piece until she could play it blindfolded, which was a challenge she enjoyed. Every day she imagined the applause, the smiles, and the look of awe on the faces of those who had doubted her. Despite her dedication, not everyone believed in her talent. Some classmates whispered behind her back, questioning whether a blind girl could ever perform as well as sighted students. There were even a few students who laughed when she was chosen for the showcase. Their words stung, but Lila did not let them discourage her. She reminded herself that music was her language, her way of connecting with the world, and that she had the power to surprise those who doubted her. She used their skepticism as fuel, letting it drive her to practice harder and to become better than she ever imagined. Her room became a sanctuary. It was filled with the warm glow of a lamp and the soft carpet under her feet. Sheet music was stacked neatly on a small table beside the piano, and her fingers moved with confidence across the keys. She would close her eyes, not because she needed to, but because it helped her feel the music even more deeply. The sound of each note, the rise and fall of the melody, became a world she could navigate without needing to see. It was in those quiet hours that Lila discovered the true magic of music. Not just playing it, but understanding it, living it, and letting it speak for her. One afternoon, as she practiced a particularly difficult piece, her teacher came in to listen. He had been teaching for years, but he had never met a student like Lila. He watched her fingers fly across the keys, producing a sound that was rich, full, and filled with emotion. There were mistakes sometimes, as with any student, but she corrected them instantly, as if her hands had minds of their own. When she finished, her teacher clapped, his eyes wide with admiration. "You have something very special," he said, his voice full of sincerity. "Most people would need years to reach this level, but you already have it in you." That evening, Lila's family sat together, discussing her upcoming performance. Her mother reminded her to enjoy it, not just to impress others. "Music is about sharing your heart," she said softly. "The notes are yours, and when you play them, people will feel what you feel." Her father nodded, adding, "And don't worry about what anyone else thinks. Some people might not understand, but that's okay. They will hear it soon enough." Lila felt a warmth in her chest. She had the love and support of her family, and that gave her courage. As the day of the performance approached, Lila's excitement grew, but so did her nerves. She imagined walking into the music hall, the large room filled with people waiting to hear her play. She imagined the bright lights, the rows of chairs, and the eyes turning toward her as she approached the piano. Her heart beat faster, but she took deep breaths, reminding herself that she had practiced for this moment for years. She would let the music guide her, just as it always had. On the day of the showcase, Lila arrived early. The hall was much bigger than she had imagined, with tall ceilings and walls that seemed to echo even the softest sounds. She ran her fingers along the keys gently, familiarizing herself with the instrument that would carry her through the performance. Behind her, she could hear the murmurs of the audience, the shuffle of programs, and the soft laughter of students. Some of the whispers were kind, some doubtful, but she didn't let any of it touch her. She focused only on the piano and the music inside her mind. When it was finally her turn, Lila walked to the stage with careful steps, guided by the sound of the applause and the gentle pat of her mother's hand. She took a deep breath and sat down at the piano. The hall went quiet. She closed her eyes, letting the familiar feel of the keys under her fingers ground her. Then she began to play. The first notes were soft, almost hesitant, but soon her confidence grew. The melody flowed naturally, carrying emotion with every chord, telling a story that words could never capture. As Lila played, the audience was drawn in. Students stopped whispering. Teachers leaned forward. Even those who had doubted her talent held their breath. She played not to prove anyone wrong, but to share the music that had lived inside her for so long. Each note was deliberate, each pause meaningful, and each crescendo powerful. She felt herself becoming one with the piano, her fingers dancing across the keys, her heart guiding her through the story she wanted to tell. By the time she reached the final note, the hall was silent for a heartbeat, as if everyone was holding their breath. Then the applause erupted, louder than anything Lila had imagined. People stood, cheering and clapping, some with tears in their eyes. Lila felt a surge of joy and relief. She had shared her gift, and the world had received it with awe. The famous pianist, who had been scheduled to critique her, watched with wide eyes, clearly impressed. Lila realized that the music had spoken for her, carrying all her courage, all her practice, and all her dreams to the hearts of everyone in the room. After the performance, people came up to congratulate her. Some wanted to know how she had learned to play so well without sight. Others simply wanted to thank her for the beautiful music. Lila smiled, answering each with gratitude and humility. She felt proud, not because she had silenced doubters, but because she had shared something true and deep from her heart. Music had been her companion, her teacher, and her voice, and now it had become a bridge connecting her to the world. That night, as she returned home, Lila sat at her piano again. She played softly, not for an audience but for herself. She thought about the journey she had taken, from the small room in her house to the bright stage where she had amazed everyone. She knew that there would be more challenges ahead, but she also knew that music would always be there, guiding her, inspiring her, and helping her overcome anything. In the quiet of her room, with her fingers on the keys, Lila felt a sense of peace and joy. She had found her voice, and it was stronger than she had ever imagined. The day of the masterclass arrived, and Lila could feel the tension in the air even before she stepped into the grand hall. The room was filled with bright lights, polished wooden floors, and the soft hum of conversations. Students and teachers moved about, adjusting their music sheets and instruments, while a few parents and observers found their seats. Lila had performed in her school before, but this was different. This was a hall where talented musicians from all over had come to showcase their skills, and the air was thick with expectation. She carried herself with quiet determination, her hands brushing over her bag as if it contained all her confidence and courage. The famous pianist, a man well known for his sharp critiques and confident presence, stood at the front of the room. He had a reputation for being unforgiving and for testing even the most skilled performers. Lila had heard stories of students trembling under his gaze and leaving the stage in tears. She felt a mix of nerves and resolve, but she remembered her mother's words and the countless hours she had spent practicing. Music had always been her friend, and now she would let it guide her. When Lila was called to the stage, the murmurs in the room grew louder. Some students whispered doubts, openly questioning whether a blind girl could really perform at the level expected in such a prestigious masterclass. A few even snickered, thinking it would be entertaining to watch her struggle. The famous pianist looked at her with a slight smirk, crossing his arms and leaning back, as if already preparing to mock her abilities. Lila's heart raced, but she took a deep breath and focused on the piano in front of her. She approached the instrument carefully, feeling the keys with her fingers before sitting down. The room seemed to hold its breath, the atmosphere thick with anticipation. Then, with a small nod from the pianist, she began to play. The first notes were soft and deliberate, almost cautious, as if she were testing the waters. She could feel every vibration of the keys under her fingertips, each sound echoing in her mind and filling the space with a melody that only she fully understood. The pianist frowned, shifting in his chair as he watched her play. He muttered something under his breath, loud enough for a few nearby students to hear. Some laughed quietly, thinking her performance would be an easy target. Lila could sense their doubt, but instead of letting it shake her, she allowed it to fuel her focus. She had prepared for moments like this, where others questioned her talent, and she knew that the music itself could speak louder than words or laughter. As she played, the initial hesitation melted away. Her fingers moved with precision, the melody flowing naturally from her hands. The room began to change. The laughter and whispers faded as the beauty of her music filled the space. Even those who had doubted her could not ignore the clarity and emotion in each note. She poured all her practice, her feelings, and her story into the performance, letting the music reveal the depth of her dedication. The famous pianist leaned forward slightly, his expression hard to read. He had seen many students fail under pressure, but there was something different about Lila. She played with a kind of confidence that did not come from arrogance, but from a deep understanding of her own abilities. He watched her fingers glide across the keys, adjusting seamlessly between soft passages and powerful crescendos. The complexity of the piece and the sensitivity in her interpretation were impressive, and he could not deny the skill she possessed. A few students who had laughed earlier now watched in silence, their mouths slightly open, unsure how to react. They had underestimated her, thinking her blindness would limit her, but they were witnessing a performance that challenged every expectation. Each note Lila played seemed to tell a story, one of perseverance, dedication, and the triumph of talent over doubt. She was not just performing. She was communicating, reaching into the hearts of everyone listening. The pianist finally spoke, his voice sharp and carrying across the hall. He asked her a challenging question about the piece, expecting her to stumble. But Lila answered calmly, explaining her interpretation and demonstrating her understanding of the music. Her confidence surprised him, and the audience noticed it too. There was a subtle shift in the room, a recognition that this young girl was not here to be mocked but to be respected. Encouraged by her composure, Lila continued her performance. She played with even more emotion, letting her fingers dance over the keys, as if they were telling the story she had lived. The notes rose and fell, echoing in the hall and filling every corner with sound. The students and teachers who had doubted her now found themselves leaning forward, fully engaged, unable to look away. She had captured their attention completely, transforming the room with her music. By the time she reached the final passage, the atmosphere was electric. The notes lingered, leaving a sense of awe in the air. The famous pianist, who had been preparing to critique her harshly, found himself silent, watching as Lila concluded her performance. Her last note faded softly, and for a moment, there was a quiet that felt almost sacred. Then the room erupted in applause, a mix of surprise, admiration, and genuine appreciation. Lila sat at the piano, breathing heavily, her heart pounding with a mix of relief and triumph. She had faced the mockery and doubt head-on and had let her talent speak for itself. The audience's reaction filled her with a sense of accomplishment she had never experienced before. Even the students who had laughed now approached her, offering congratulations and expressing their amazement at what she had just done. The famous pianist finally stood, clapping slowly, his expression one of reluctant admiration. He approached Lila and nodded, acknowledging her skill and courage. "I underestimated you," he said quietly, his voice carrying a weight of sincerity. "Your talent is undeniable." Lila smiled, grateful not for the praise, but for the recognition that her years of dedication and hard work had been seen and appreciated. After the performance, people gathered around Lila, asking questions about her practice, her approach to learning music, and how she had developed such remarkable skill despite her blindness. She answered each question with humility, explaining that her journey had been one of patience, persistence, and love for music. She wanted everyone to understand that obstacles could be overcome with determination and passion. That day marked a turning point in Lila's life. She had faced mockery, doubt, and scrutiny, yet she had emerged stronger and more confident than ever. Her performance was not just a display of skill. It was a statement about resilience, courage, and the power of following one's dreams. She had proven, not only to the famous pianist and her peers but to herself, that talent and determination could overcome any obstacle. As Lila left the hall that day, she felt a new sense of purpose. She knew that her journey in music was only beginning and that there would be more challenges ahead. But she also knew that she had the strength to face them, the skill to meet them, and the heart to let her music shine. The experience had shown her that the world could be harsh, but it could also be kind and appreciative when one had the courage to share their true gift. That night, Lila returned home and sat at her piano again, reflecting on the day. She played softly, letting the notes carry her memories of the performance and the reactions of the audience. She felt a sense of peace and fulfillment, knowing that she had stayed true to herself and her music. The journey had been difficult, but it had also been beautiful. She realized that the power of music lay not only in skill but in the courage to face judgment and to keep moving forward, one note at a time. After the intense experience at the masterclass, Lila found herself alone in the quiet corner of the music academy. The applause still echoed in her ears, but beneath the excitement, a small seed of doubt began to grow. She replayed every moment in her mind, remembering the smirks and whispers of those who had doubted her. For a brief moment, she wondered if she had been lucky, if her performance had been enough to convince anyone, or if it was only a temporary illusion of success. These thoughts weighed on her, and she felt the familiar ache of uncertainty. She closed her eyes and let the familiar feel of the piano guide her. Her fingers brushed over the keys, producing soft, deliberate notes that seemed to calm her racing heart. In the silence of the empty room, Lila allowed herself to reflect honestly. She realized that while the applause was gratifying, what mattered most was not what others thought, but how she felt about her own music. Her love for the piano, the countless hours she had spent practicing, and the joy she found in creating sound were the true measures of her success. She reminded herself that no amount of recognition could replace the personal connection she had with music. The next days were filled with a mix of excitement and anxiety. Students whispered in the hallways, some praising her, others still skeptical. Teachers spoke in hushed tones about the remarkable blind girl who had stunned the famous pianist. Lila listened, smiling quietly to herself. While the external validation was nice, she knew that the real challenge was internal, maintaining confidence in the face of doubt, criticism, and her own insecurities. She began to understand that courage was not about never feeling fear, but about continuing forward even when fear existed. At home, Lila spent long hours practicing. She experimented with new pieces, pushing herself to explore complex compositions she had never attempted before. She wanted to expand her abilities, to grow beyond the confines of what she had already achieved. Each evening, she closed her eyes and let her fingers move instinctively over the keys, trusting the music that lived in her mind. She discovered new ways to express emotion, subtle nuances in timing, dynamics, and phrasing that transformed ordinary notes into something powerful and moving. The piano became her confidant, her safe space where she could process every emotion, from doubt to determination. One afternoon, as she played a particularly difficult composition, her teacher came to listen. He had always believed in her, but even he was amazed at the depth and precision of her playing. He observed the way her fingers glided effortlessly over the keys, the delicate control she had over every note, and the way she conveyed emotion without hesitation. "You have grown so much," he said softly, almost in awe. "I can see that you are not just playing the music, you are living it. Your heart is in every note, And that is what makes your performance unforgettable. Lila smiled, feeling both pride and humility. She understood that growth was a continuous journey, and that each moment of mastery was a stepping stone to the next. Despite her progress, the lingering memory of the famous pianist's initial mockery remained. Lila often replayed his smirk and the doubt in his eyes. She realized that overcoming external judgment required inner strength. She began to meditate on her feelings before every practice, grounding herself in the certainty of her talent and the joy of music. She reminded herself that the opinions of others could be acknowledged without being internalized. Her focus shifted from impressing anyone else to honing her own skills and understanding the true essence of music. Lila also started to notice changes in her peers. Some who had previously mocked her now sought her advice and guidance. They asked her questions about technique, expression, and practice routines. Lila approached each interaction with patience and generosity. She shared what she had learned, encouraging others to explore their own abilities with dedication and persistence. In these moments, she realized that teaching and inspiring others could be as fulfilling as performing, and that sharing her knowledge was another way to strengthen her connection to music. Even with these positive experiences, there were moments of frustration. Some pieces challenged her beyond her current abilities, and mistakes happened despite hours of preparation. In those times, Lila felt the sting of imperfection, the frustration of knowing she had not yet reached the level she aspired to. Yet, instead of giving in to discouragement, she approached each mistake as a learning opportunity. She analyzed where her fingers faltered, where timing could be improved, and where expression could be deepened. Slowly, methodically, she transformed setbacks into growth, understanding that mastery was not a destination but a journey. Her family continued to play a critical role in her development. They attended every informal performance she offered at home, applauding her efforts and celebrating her progress. Their encouragement created a safe space where Lila could experiment, make mistakes, and take risks without fear of judgment. They reminded her that her talent was unique, that it could not be diminished by anyone else's doubts, and that her journey was her own. With their support, she felt a renewed sense of purpose and determination. One evening, after a long practice session, Lila sat quietly at the piano, reflecting on everything she had experienced. She thought about the moment she had walked onto the stage during the masterclass, the fear she had felt, and the triumph of her performance. She considered the whispers, the doubts, and the laughter that she had encountered, and she realized that all of it, every challenge, every doubt, every moment of uncertainty, had shaped her into the musician she was becoming. The obstacles had not defeated her. They had refined her, making her stronger, more resilient, and more expressive. With this understanding, Lila began to set new goals for herself. She wanted to explore different genres of music, to challenge herself with more complex compositions, and to find her unique voice as a pianist. She began to write her own arrangements and experiment with improvisation, discovering the joy of creating something entirely new. She understood that the journey of learning and growth was endless, and that each day brought new opportunities to deepen her connection to music and to herself. As Lila continued her journey, she realized that the true power of music lay not only in performance, but in the courage to face the world with authenticity and dedication. The mockery and doubt she had experienced were no longer sources of fear, but catalysts for her growth. She learned that resilience came from within, from trusting her own abilities and from letting her passion guide her. Every note she played became a testament to her perseverance, and every melody she created reflected the strength of her spirit. In quiet moments, Lila would sit at her piano and let her fingers move freely, exploring the emotions that words could not capture. She felt a deep sense of peace and fulfillment, knowing that she had the courage to continue despite challenges. She understood that life, much like music, was full of highs and lows, and that true artistry came from embracing both. Through her dedication, her love for music, and her unwavering determination, Lila continued to grow, preparing herself for the moments when she would once again face the world and leave a lasting impression with the music that lived in her heart. The day of the big performance had finally arrived. Lila could feel the tension in her chest as she approached the grand concert hall. She had performed many times in smaller settings, but this was different. The hall was vast, filled with rows of seats stretching far back, and a sense of expectation hung heavily in the air. The audience included students, teachers, critics, and music lovers, all waiting to see what the blind girl could do. Lila's hands brushed over the keys of her piano as she walked toward it, grounding herself in the familiar texture, the smoothness of the black and white keys, and the rhythm that pulsed through her fingers. Backstage, she could hear the murmur of the audience, the soft creaking of chairs, and the quiet shuffling of people finding their seats. There was a mixture of excitement and skepticism, whispers of doubt, and curiosity about what this young blind pianist could produce. Lila's heart pounded, but she reminded herself of the countless hours of practice, the dedication, and the love for music that had brought her to this moment. She took a deep breath, closing her eyes for a brief moment to center herself. The piano was more than an instrument. It was her voice, her companion, and her sanctuary. As she sat down, the bright stage lights warmed her face, and she could hear the faint rustle of the audience settling in. The moment felt heavy, as if the entire room was holding its breath. She placed her fingers on the keys, feeling the familiar shapes beneath her touch. She could sense every note waiting to be played, every melody that had lived in her mind for months. The hall was silent now, all eyes focused on her, some with doubt, some with anticipation. She took another deep breath, letting the tension flow out with her exhale, and allowed herself to be carried by the music. The first notes were soft and deliberate, almost hesitant. She allowed them to float into the hall, filling the space gently, creating a sense of curiosity and attention. She could feel the vibrations of the keys through her fingers, guiding her, reminding her of the countless hours she had spent preparing for this very moment. The audience leaned forward slightly, some exchanging glances, sensing that this was no ordinary performance. Lila felt her nerves begin to settle as the music flowed naturally, her fingers moving with precision and emotion. With each passing moment, the melody grew more confident, richer, and more expressive. She played with sensitivity and control, conveying emotions that could not be spoken with words. Her hands seemed to move with a mind of their own, responding to the music inside her heart. The room transformed. It was no longer a hall full of spectators but a shared space of emotion, where each note resonated with the listeners, capturing their attention and stirring their feelings. Lila felt a connection with the audience, even though she could not see them, a silent understanding that the music was reaching their hearts. The famous pianist, who had once mocked her during the masterclass, watched from the side of the stage. His expression was unreadable at first, but as the music flowed, a flicker of surprise crossed his face. He had expected a performance that would falter under pressure, but what he heard was precise, emotional, and full of life. The music filled the hall with energy, subtlety, and power. Each chord, each transition, spoke of discipline, dedication, and deep understanding. Even he could not deny the skill and artistry before him. Some audience members who had doubted her sat silently, unable to look away. Others who had come expecting a simple performance found themselves drawn into the story she was telling through her music. Every rise and fall of the melody, every pause, every crescendo, communicated her journey. The struggles, the practice, the perseverance, and the triumph of her talent. Lila was not just playing the piano. She was telling a story without words, allowing her music to speak for her and resonate with everyone listening. The tension in the hall was palpable. Lila had moved through the complex passages with grace and control, her fingers dancing across the keys with confidence. She could feel the energy in the room shift as the audience became fully absorbed in her performance. The notes flowed effortlessly, carrying emotion, suspense, and beauty. Even subtle changes in dynamics, delicate phrasing, and the natural rise and fall of the music captivated the listeners. Each note was deliberate, each phrase carefully considered, yet the performance felt organic and alive. As the piece reached its climax, Lila's heart beat in sync with the music. The final passages were powerful and expressive, each note carrying weight and meaning. She felt every emotion she had experienced in her journey, from doubt and fear to determination and triumph. She poured all of it into the performance, allowing the piano to become an extension of her spirit. The audience was spellbound, their attention fully captured, experiencing the story of her perseverance and talent in every sound. When the last note faded into silence, there was a moment of stillness, a pause where time seemed to hang. Then the hall erupted into applause, cheers, and standing ovations. The energy in the room was electric, a mix of surprise, admiration, and awe. Lila sat at the piano, breathing heavily, feeling a surge of pride, relief, and joy. She had faced the most important performance of her life and had let the music guide her, communicating a story that transcended words. The applause was not just for her technical skill, but for the heart, dedication, and courage she had displayed. The famous pianist approached, clapping slowly, his expression showing respect and acknowledgement. He extended his hand and spoke, his voice filled with sincerity. "Your talent is extraordinary," he said. "You have shown a level of artistry that goes beyond skill. You play with heart, with understanding, and with courage. I underestimated you, and I am truly impressed." Lila smiled, not for the praise itself, but for the recognition that her dedication and love for music had been seen and appreciated. This moment was a confirmation of the journey she had undertaken, of the countless hours of practice and the obstacles she had overcome. After the performance, the audience surrounded her with congratulations, questions, and admiration. Some wanted to know how she had learned to play so well without sight. Others wanted to understand her approach to interpretation and expression. Lila answered with humility, explaining that her journey had been one of patience, focus, and love for the piano. She wanted everyone to understand that talent could be nurtured through dedication, practice, and passion, and that obstacles did not define what one could achieve. Backstage, Lila reflected on everything she had experienced. She thought about the mockery, the doubts, and the disbelief she had faced in her life. She realized that all of it had shaped her into the musician she had become. The fear, the practice, the perseverance. It all led to this moment of connection, where the music spoke louder than words and reached into the hearts of the audience. She understood that her journey was not just about mastering the piano, but about building resilience, confidence, and the ability to communicate deeply through her art. That night, after returning home, Lila sat at her piano once more. She played softly, letting the emotions of the day flow through her fingertips. Each note reminded her of the triumph she had experienced, of the strength she had discovered within herself, and of the connection she had made with others through her music. She felt a profound sense of fulfillment and peace, knowing that her talent, dedication, and courage had carried her through one of the most important moments of her life. The journey was far from over, but she was ready, her heart full of music, and her spirit stronger than ever. After the performance, the hall buzzed with energy. People could not stop talking about what they had just witnessed. Lila's music had touched everyone in a way that was unexpected and unforgettable. Students who had doubted her earlier were now whispering to one another, amazed by her skill, her expression, and her control over the piano. Teachers nodded in admiration, some exchanging impressed glances, silently acknowledging that they had seen something extraordinary. Even the critics, who often found faults in every performance, could not help but recognize the depth and artistry in Lila's playing. As the applause continued to echo in the hall, Lila stood by the piano, listening to the cheers and clapping. Her heart was full, not just from the recognition, but from the realization that her music had reached others on a deep level. She had shared her journey, her emotions, and her dedication, and people had understood her message without a single word spoken. She felt a warm sense of connection to every person in the room, knowing that the music had created a bridge between her heart and theirs. The famous pianist who had once mocked her approached with a look of sincere respect. His earlier smirk was gone, replaced by a quiet admiration. "I underestimated you," he said, his voice firm but kind. Your performance was not only technically impressive, but it carried emotion, strength, and presence. You have proven yourself in a way few can. I am truly impressed. Lila nodded, feeling a sense of validation, not for the praise itself, but for the recognition of her hard work, resilience, and talent. This acknowledgement from someone so respected made her achievement feel even more meaningful. Audience members began approaching her, some with tears in their eyes, others with wide smiles, expressing how her music had moved them. One teacher said, "I have never heard a student convey so much feeling through every note. You have touched everyone in this room." Another person asked how she had learned to play so beautifully without sight, curious about her technique and dedication. Lila shared her journey humbly, explaining that it was not only talent, but years of practice, patience, and love for music that had brought her here. She encouraged others to pursue their passions, to persevere despite obstacles, and to trust themselves. As the conversations continued, Lila realized that her music had more impact than she had imagined. It had silenced doubt, shifted opinions, and inspired those who had previously underestimated her. Students began to look at her with new respect, some asking for advice on how to improve their own skills. Teachers and mentors saw her as a model of dedication and talent. Lila understood that her performance had gone beyond a single piece of music. It had become a statement about courage, determination, and the power of following one's dreams. Later, when she stepped outside the hall, the cool evening air felt refreshing. People were still talking about her performance, some recording short videos, others sharing the story with friends. Lila walked with quiet pride, feeling the warmth of recognition and understanding. She knew that her journey in music was only beginning, and that this performance was a milestone rather than a final achievement. There would be more challenges, more stages, and more critics, but she felt ready to face them all. That evening, Lila returned home, carrying the memories of the day in her heart. She sat quietly at her piano, not to perform for anyone else, but to feel the music herself. She played softly, allowing her emotions to flow through the keys. Each note was a reflection of her journey. The hours of practice, the moments of doubt, the courage to face judgment, and the triumph of sharing her music with the world. In that quiet room, she felt peace and fulfillment, knowing that she had given her best and had made a real impact. Her family gathered around, sharing their pride and joy. They spoke about how much she had grown, not only as a musician but as a person. Her mother said, "You have shown everyone what dedication and heart can achieve. Your music speaks for itself, and it has touched people in ways words cannot." Her father added, "The courage you showed today will carry you far. This is only the beginning of the incredible journey ahead." Lila felt their words deeply, understanding that support, love, and encouragement had always been a guiding light for her. In the following days, Lila received messages and invitations from music clubs, schools, and even local media, all eager to feature her story and her talent. While the attention was flattering, she remained humble, focusing on her practice and growth rather than the fame. She knew that music was her true goal, not recognition. Each performance, each practice session, and each note played was a step toward becoming the best musician she could be, and she welcomed every opportunity to learn and share her gift. Despite the growing recognition, Lila remained grounded. She continued to approach each day with discipline, practicing diligently and exploring new pieces. She experimented with different styles of music, learning how to express a wider range of emotions and stories through her piano. Improvisation became a new area of exploration, allowing her to create music spontaneously, responding to her feelings and the rhythm of life around her. Through this, she discovered even more joy and depth in her art. Her peers, inspired by her courage and skill, began to support her in various ways. Some offered to help organize small performances, while others shared their own experiences of challenges they had faced, finding comfort and inspiration in Lila's journey. Teachers began to include her story as an example for other students, showing that perseverance, dedication, and passion could overcome obstacles. Lila felt a sense of responsibility, knowing that her music and her story could motivate others to pursue their dreams. In quiet moments, Lila reflected on everything she had achieved. She thought about the fear she had felt before the performance, the doubts of others, and the hard work that had led to that day. She realized that each step, each challenge, and each moment of perseverance had shaped her not only as a musician but as a person. She had learned the value of patience, the strength of courage, and the importance of believing in oneself. Music had become more than an expression of talent. It had become a reflection of her spirit and a bridge to connect with others. As time passed, Lila's story spread beyond the hall where she had performed. People shared her achievements, inspired by her determination and talent. Young musicians began to see her as a role model, learning that obstacles could be overcome and that persistence could lead to extraordinary accomplishments. Lila's journey became a symbol of hope, resilience, and the power of pursuing one's passion with unwavering dedication. Through it all, Lila remained focused on what mattered most: her music. She continued to practice, explore, and express herself through the piano, finding joy and fulfillment in every note. She understood that recognition and admiration were meaningful, but the true reward lay in the connection she felt with the music and the emotions it could convey. Each performance was an opportunity to share her heart, to inspire, and to create something beautiful. In the quiet of her home, Lila would often sit at the piano long after everyone else had gone to bed. She played softly, letting the music flow naturally, exploring melodies, and experimenting with emotion. She felt a deep sense of satisfaction, knowing that she had faced challenges, silenced doubts, and shared her gift with the world. The applause, the praise, and the recognition were important, but they were secondary to the joy of music itself. Lila had discovered that her true strength came from within, from her love of music, and from her courage to follow her passion despite the obstacles she faced. The days after the performance were filled with a mix of excitement, reflection, and new opportunities for Lila. Her story had begun to spread beyond the music hall, reaching people who had not been there to witness her talent firsthand. Invitations arrived from local music organizations, schools, and even community events, all eager to see her perform and to share her inspiring journey. Lila felt a mixture of pride and nervousness. She had never imagined her music would create such a ripple, but she knew that each new opportunity was a chance to grow and to share the power of her art with a wider audience. Despite the attention, Lila remained grounded. She continued her daily practice with the same dedication she always had. Every morning, she would sit at her piano, feeling the familiar keys beneath her fingers, and lose herself in the music. She explored new pieces, challenging herself with compositions she had never attempted before. She experimented with improvisation, allowing her heart and instincts to guide her hands. With each note, she discovered new ways to express emotion, telling stories through melodies that words could not capture. Her love for music was the constant that kept her centered amidst the growing recognition. Lila's family continued to support her in every step. They attended each performance, celebrated her achievements, and reminded her to stay true to herself. Her mother often said, "Remember, it is not the applause that matters most, but the music itself. When you play from your heart, you will inspire others naturally." Her father added, "Every note you play is a gift. Keep sharing it and the world will feel it." Their encouragement helped Lila maintain perspective, understanding that her talent was not just for personal achievement, but also for touching the lives of others. As Lila performed at different venues, she noticed the impact her music had on people. Audience members would approach her afterward, expressing how moved they were by her performance. Some shared their own struggles, saying that hearing her play gave them hope and motivation. Others praised her courage and dedication, inspired by the way she had faced doubt and judgment with confidence. Lila realized that her music was more than sound. It was a connection, a source of encouragement, and a reminder that obstacles could be overcome with determination and passion. Through these experiences, Lila grew not only as a musician but as a person. She learned the importance of patience, resilience, and humility. Each performance was a chance to refine her skills, express her emotions, and communicate with her audience in a meaningful way. She understood that mastery was a lifelong journey, one that required continual effort, learning, and exploration. Lila embraced every challenge, knowing that each one was an opportunity to deepen her understanding of music and herself. The famous pianist who had once mocked her remained a presence in her journey, though now it was one of respect and mentorship. He occasionally attended her performances, offering advice and guidance in a supportive manner. Lila valued his feedback, not as a measure of her worth, but as a way to improve and grow. She had learned that even those who seemed critical could provide valuable lessons, and that humility and openness were essential traits for anyone striving to achieve greatness. Lila also began to mentor younger students, sharing her knowledge and experiences with those who were just beginning their musical journeys. She encouraged them to practice diligently, to embrace their unique abilities, and to approach challenges with courage. Her story became an inspiration to many, showing that talent, hard work, and determination could triumph over obstacles, including disability and doubt. Lila found joy in helping others discover their own strengths and passions, understanding that music could be a bridge of hope and connection. Throughout her journey, Lila continued to face moments of self-doubt, as any artist does. There were times when a piece felt too difficult, when mistakes occurred despite careful practice, or when the pressure of public expectation weighed heavily. In these moments, she reminded herself of how far she had come, of the countless hours of practice, and of the love and support of her family and mentors. She learned to treat each challenge as an opportunity for growth, embracing mistakes as lessons rather than failures. This mindset allowed her to continue evolving as both a musician and a person. Lila's reputation as a talented and inspiring pianist grew steadily. Invitations to perform in more prestigious venues arrived, as well as opportunities to collaborate with other musicians and composers. Each new experience added depth and richness to her musical expression. She learned to adapt to different audiences, venues, and instruments, understanding that flexibility and resilience were key aspects of a successful performer. With every performance, she refined her technique, expanded her repertoire, and deepened the emotional impact of her music. Despite her growing recognition, Lila remained humble and focused on the essence of her art. She played not for fame or validation, but for the joy of music itself and for the connection it created with others. She understood that her journey was not just about personal achievement, but about inspiring and uplifting those who listened to her. Every performance was a chance to share her heart, to communicate emotion, and to encourage others to pursue their dreams with dedication and courage. As the years went by, Lila's story became well known in her community and beyond. She was invited to speak at schools, music workshops, and community events, sharing her journey and the lessons she had learned. She emphasized the importance of perseverance, self-belief, and passion, encouraging young musicians to embrace challenges and to never let doubt or criticism deter them. Her story served as a beacon of hope, demonstrating that obstacles could be overcome with determination, hard work, and love for one's craft. In quiet moments, Lila would reflect on her journey from a young blind girl learning to navigate the piano keys to a musician capable of touching hearts with her performances. She remembered the mockery, the doubt, the whispers, and the skepticism, and realized how each challenge had shaped her into the person she had become. She understood that every note she played carried not just technical skill, but the story of her perseverance, courage, and growth. Her music continued to evolve, becoming richer, more expressive, and more nuanced. She explored different genres, experimented with improvisation, and composed her own pieces, finding new ways to communicate her emotions and experiences. Each performance was a journey, a story told through melody and rhythm, connecting with audiences in ways that words could never fully capture. Lila had discovered the profound power of music to transcend barriers, to inspire, and to unite people from all walks of life. Through it all, Lila remained true to herself, her passion, and her love for the piano. She understood that success was not measured by fame or accolades, but by the ability to share one's gift, touch lives, and continue growing as an artist and as a person. Her journey had taught her resilience, humility, and the importance of pursuing one's dreams with unwavering dedication. As she sat at her piano in her home, playing softly for herself, Lila felt a sense of peace and fulfillment. She had faced doubt, mockery, and challenges, yet she had emerged stronger, more skilled, and more connected to the music that had always been her companion. She understood that her story was not just about overcoming obstacles, but about the power of passion, perseverance, and courage to inspire and transform lives. Lila's journey was a testament to the human spirit, showing that talent, dedication, and love for one's craft could overcome any obstacle and leave a lasting impact on the world.